Entitled Stepmother Gets Herself Banned from My Wedding. My 28M stepmother, 49F, is a wannabe party planner. She has taken it upon herself to plan and host every party and holiday my dad's family has thrown since she married him. I never loved those occasions growing up. She's controlling and gets upset if people complain about anything, but humored her for my dad's sake. According to him, this helps her feel included. I'm getting married to my fiancée Jane, 26F, in July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane ended up getting pregnant a couple months after that, and we decided to postpone the wedding to focus on our son for a while. So we've had a long engagement. My stepmother has tried to hijack our wedding plans from day one, complaining, contacting our planner, showing up unannounced to Jane's dress appointments, etc., and we have repeatedly asked her to stop. Dad wants us to humor her, but she's clearly resentful of the fact that she's not hosting the wedding or being labeled mother of the groom and invitations. Besides our baby boy, we also have Luke, 4M, Jane's paternal half-brother. She got custody of him a few months into our relationship, after his parents died. I ended up moving in with them during the pandemic, and have been in Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad, and refers to us as his sister and his op, but we love him like a son. Stepmother, though, hates Luke. She accuses Jane of baby-trapping her way into the family. That accusation only got worse after our son was born. My dad gets along with Jane and adores the kids, but stepmother demands him to refuse babysitting Luke, so we don't leave the kids with them often. Instead, Jane's brother and sister-in-law usually watch the kids for us, as their children are close to ours in age. We had a thing last Sunday, and my brother-in-law was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as well as my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place, and we left. We came back to find both kids crying, stepmother screaming, and dad weakly trying to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that both he and our son were going to be our ring bearers, and she went ballistic. She screamed that she wasn't going to allow that because he wasn't family. She then hit him when he started crying. His lip is still split. She'd never gotten to this point before. We immediately banned her from our house and from our wedding. Dad is fuming and has said he's not going without her. He's also convinced half of his side of the family, by severely downplaying what stepmother did, to boycott the wedding as well. This includes my stepbrother, who fully agrees with his mother no matter how many times I try to tell him the truth. Me and Jane are refusing to budge, but many of my cousins who aren't coming anymore are asking us to reconsider. Pretty much all of Jane's family agrees with us, but one of her aunts has suggested that maybe stepmother is acting out because she doesn't feel welcomed by my family. I've honestly had it with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad, and really want him at my wedding, but I am more than willing to go no contact if it means protecting my family. My mom was pregnant, and my parents blamed me for losing the baby. Well, now I know why my parents tried to force me to move back in on Thanksgiving. My mom was pregnant with kid number 6. And I only recently found out. To start things off with, one of my siblings found my Reddit account not too long after my last post. And they showed it to our parents, who in turn showed up at my apartment screaming at me about how I had set them up to get my mom arrested and made the world think they are bad parents. Well, they are. I called them out while standing in my doorway about all the shit they've done, right down to leaving my siblings at my door on a day they knew I worked. That's bad parenting any way you look at it. And it didn't really matter that I set them up, because I would have otherwise called the police on mom anyway when she left kids at my door. And in the end it would have made no difference. My dad looked like he was ready to raise a fist to me, and I said that action alone proves me right that they're shitty parents. Then stated that if he tried to hit me, it'd turn out like last time. And I don't think his balls could take another hit from my boots. And yes, I was wearing them. Dad seemed to wince and clench his legs together at the thought of what I did to him last time. So he ended up leaving and dragging my mom out by the hand. And he yelled back before leaving the hallway that he expected me to pay them back for the fine they had to pay for child abandonment since it was all my fault. I told them to fuck off and that I didn't owe them shit. They didn't say anything back. It was just recently that I got some very bad news. My mom had been about 6 months pregnant, and she lost the baby after a bad fall at home when she slipped on wet porch steps and landed face down in gravel. Honestly, I couldn't tell she'd been pregnant at all the time I saw her prior to that. She's a bit on the heavier side, and has always been clumsy. But not fat. Just enough that you really couldn't tell if she was pregnant or not. It is sad, and this was her first miscarriage. So she really wanted someone to blame. And that someone had to be me in her eyes. because I'd destroyed the family by not helping, and by costing them so much money. She and Dad showed up at my apartment again with her in crutches, just to say it was all my fault she lost the baby because I refused to come home and help when they needed me. It turned into a pretty big argument where I called them out on how they were just looking for free childcare, and looking to blame me for something that's not my fault. It's not my fault they got pregnant again when Mom is 44 years old. And it's not my fault it happened anyway. Blame it on the rotten old porch Dad was too cheap to ever fix or replace. Well, my father laid his hands on me again when I said that, and I got a sharp right hook from him. And then I ended up kicking his ass one more time. I'd never really stopped working out at the gym, and I'm even stronger than I was when I took him down last Thanksgiving. He didn't stand a chance. I blanked out in a rage, and ended up breaking his nose and knocking out both of his front teeth before my mom's screaming made me stop. Police were called, and I was put in cuffs while my father had to be taken to the hospital. Thankfully the hallways for my apartment complex have CCTV. And I had my phone camera going behind me in my apartment as well that I started recording when my parents knocked. The footage easily showed that my father attacked me first, and I defended myself. I'm essentially in the clear as it was labeled self-defense. But now my parents are wanting to sue me for my dad's medical bills and the fine they had to previously pay. Dad can't go to work for some time due to the beating I gave him. He's in a neck brace with a broken nose, a black eye, 2 lost teeth, and who knows what else. His beard also had to be shaved off, which he's also very unhappy about. He was already pretty much dead to me even before this. So I guess this makes him double dead to me. And what little power he ever thought he had as my father is gone. I'm physically much stronger than him, and soon I'll be starting a new job that pays way better thanks to all my hard work these past few months. And maybe with a few years of saving, I'll get a much better place to live. My eldest sibling called me to say I was their hero for beating the shit out of Dad. And that they were planning on leaving just like I did when they turned 18. But it was my next sibling after them that found my Reddit posts after hearing them on YouTube, and that led to my parents finding out because my mom heard them talking about it, and made them show my post to her. They said she was enraged and started breaking things. My siblings have apologized that they let Mom and Dad find out. And that they would have never said anything if they'd known Mom was listening. Both have also said that they're happy there won't be another baby though. They're already having to do a lot of the childcare for my parents right now. And they hate it. They admitted to blaming me for leaving at first too. But they realize that when you become an adult, you deserve to take your own path. It's still up in the air whether or not my parents actually will try to sue me. But I think I can safely say that it'll be a loss for them if they do. One of my friend's uncles is a lawyer. And said he'd represent me if my parents decide to sue. And he also says that they don't have much of a case since it was self-defense. And to my parents, who will probably read this, I only have this to say. Leave me the hell alone. You don't own me or my siblings. And when the time comes for them to be able to leave at 18, I'll help them get out of your house. You both have always been selfish narcissists. It's not my fault Mom lost the baby. And it's not my fault you had such a hard time without me in the house to be your free babysitter. Consider that broken nose and lost teeth as a good reason to never even touch me again. And don't forget that I have only told a fraction of the shit that went on in my life thanks to you all here. If I wanted to, I could post story after story of the shit that went on in my childhood. But that wouldn't bring me satisfaction. So just leave me the hell alone. Entitled Mother Gets Her Way, only for it to backfire spectacularly. This tale takes place decades ago, before the rise of the internet, before cell phones. Phones were in the process of shedding their tails so to speak. I was a girl fast approaching her double digits. Months earlier, my silent world had exploded into sound with the invention of a pair of tiny battery-powered devices that boosted sound called hearing aids. Before this, one made do wearing earpieces connected to a black box worn on the chest using a harness. These devices had a lot of issues and didn't work well with me. Too much feedback. I would much later make use of a similar system called an FM system during later school years. My 10th birthday was on the horizon. My parents surprised me by renting the party room of my favorite pizza restaurant where most of the staff knew sign language. The restaurant is set up with the party room in the back corner. On the opposite side is the arcade room. There's no door between the party room and arcade. This is important. Below these rooms was the standard restaurant floor. Booths lined the walls. The midsection was divided into 2 parts. The front part was sunken, much like a 70s area conversation pit. A central circular table held a fireplace while gaming systems lined the tables against the walls. NES, SNES, N64, Sega, Atari, and PlayStation. No Xbox, as that would be released 5 years later. The section behind that was regular table and chair seating. Both sections were rentable for parties. We were setting up in the party room when Entitled Mother appeared. I saw her talking to my uncle and didn't think anything about it as I was in the process of studying my word list. At this point, I was learning to form my noises into words. I could make sounds, just not actual words. A light shoulder tap got my attention and my cousin signed that my uncle wanted my attention. I go to him. He signed that Entitled Mother wanted the party room and was offering to switch with us. I asked where her section was. It was the back section of the middle area, and I agreed to the switch. We switch, and I overhear Entitled Mother complaining about gang signs, and not being sure of switching for fear of violence, but Entitled Kid wanted the party room. We switch. This puts us right next to the arcade. A bit later, I'm having my speech lesson with my dad. Entitled Kid and friends try to dash through to get to the arcade, is told he can't, and runs off crying to Entitled Mother. I'm on my dad's lap with one hand on my chest and my other on his, trying to mimic the same motions his chest makes as he says the words on my list. I'm struggling with a word. We hear a screech. Entitled Mother is pointing at us and screeching about sex, our use of gang signs, and how her husband was going to arrest us all when his backup arrived. My uncle stood. Now he's a huge beefcake of a man who is a big teddy bear inside. He towers well over her and glares at her. His mouth is moving. I later learned he was telling her I was deaf, learning to speak, and the language was sign language, not gang signs, and no, her spawn and friends were not going to disrupt our party. They can go around us instead. He didn't care, it was too far, and Entitled Kid was not unable to walk the distance. At that, red and blue lights start flashing outside and Entitled Mother looks smug. Cops rush in. Her face as my uncle greeted them was priceless. My uncle was the police chief. He told Entitled Mother she had a choice. Either she could wear a pair of silver bracelets and stay a night in 5-star lodgings, or she could explain to Entitled Kid he can't disrupt our party and has to walk around us to get to the arcade while leaving us alone. The cops are dispersed and my uncle gives an assignment to Pete and Jim, fake names, to stay. It's a good thing he did. Entitled Mother ended up earning herself a pair of shiny silver bracelets and a night in 5-star lodgings. First Entitled Kid and friends destroyed the salad bar. Next he tried to make off with the N64, then nearly succeeded with the PlayStation. He also got caught trying to steal my new Hot Wheels garage playset twice. I think I overheard her calling me an idiot and asking why I wasn't in a home yet. The stereotype was finally starting to fall. Entitled Mother tried to skip out on paying for the party room in which she actually never bought the party package. Husband wasn't even a cop. He ran the evidence lockup area. My mother trying to compete with my mother-in-law and being a grandma. This begins as me and my girlfriend have just had a baby. After some serious pregnancy complications they had to bring our son 6 weeks early. We spent a night in hospital, then doctors needed to perform a C-section within the hour, otherwise she and her baby could die basically. I immediately phoned my mother-in-law. My girlfriend wanted me and her mom as birthing partners anyway and naturally she was worried about her daughter. My stepdad rushed my mother-in-law down and the two of us rushed into theater where our beautiful boy was born. He was rushed to intensive care in which I went with, and my girlfriend was then rushed for further care to which her mom accompanied her. This is where my entitled mother comes into the picture. She wanted to come down and visit my girlfriend and baby and I broke it to her that no visitors were allowed, they were both really poorly. For her to start kicking off at me that she's his grandma too, feels underappreciated and used by us. Meanwhile I'm in the hospital, my son hooked up to oxygen, tubes, wires and medication. And my girlfriend with near enough the same. And my selfish mother was complaining she wasn't there and mother-in-law was. I'm sorry but her mother nearly lost her daughter, of course she's going to be there. Plus my mother simply was not allowed on the hospital ward anyway due to rules and restrictions. But she wouldn't accept that. The following day, she was allowed to come and see my girlfriend and baby. She came in absolutely livid that mother-in-law was there again. Not to her face but kicking off to me. But when she saw how poorly our baby was she burst into tears and realized he wasn't in a good way. Said she hadn't realized how small and poorly he was. After a few days, he massively recovered, and started getting the majority of wires and tubes removed. We took my mother a few times to meet him where she got to hold him and spend time with him. My mother-in-law was working during the week, so didn't get to see him until the weekend. I took her at the weekend, where my parents came to visit. This was the first time mother-in-law had got to hold him. And yet along my mother comes and takes him for cuddles. Despite seeing him multiple times in the week. My girlfriend and her mom didn't complain, but I apologized when I took mother-in-law home that evening. She said it was absolutely fine. But I didn't feel like it was. Mom seemed to calm down, and then today she was helping me prepare the bedroom for mom and baby coming home, where she saw a coat mother-in-law had bought for baby. My mom accused her of stealing it. I've no idea where that had come from. Apparently felt the shop it came from was too expensive for her mom to shop at. I shut her straight down and told her to pack it in. She then pulled a receipt out of the pocket, that thankfully was for the coat. I just don't understand why she's so jealous and against my mother-in-law. But she needs to pack it right in. It's like she feels like she is his only grandmother and she's not.